Creating your own reality. Is it possible for me? I am Jennifer K. Hill, the consciousness architect, and I am here to tell you that it's not only possible, it's closer than you might think. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome back for another episode of Regarding Consciousness. It is always so much fun to get to be with you and with our incredible guests who join us from around the world. Today, we have a friend, thought leader, and person who is here to connect visionaries and change the world through his impact, Justin Breen. I'm so grateful that Justin came into my life several months ago. We've gotten to know each other over the last several months and exchanged some connections, woven some threads together. And if you don't follow him already on social media, I highly recommend it. We were talking offline right before we came on here about how much I appreciate the way he keeps in touch with community and his visions. And he is someone who connects visionaries, and he himself is a visionary. In fact, he's written several books, including a Wall Street Journal best-selling book. He is also the CEO of the PR firm BR Epic Communications and the exclusive connectivity platform BR Epic Network. His first book, Epic Business, was a bestseller in 6 countries and #1 for entrepreneurship in the United States. He's also been with BR Epic Communications, which he started in 2017 and launched the BR Epic Network in 2022. He's an active member of Strategic Coach 10 Times Ambition Program and Abundance 360 Summit. He lives in the Chicago suburbs with his wife and dogs and is an incredible human being who I feel grateful to call a friend. Justin, thanks for being here with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. How did becoming epic, how did this all come into your life? What inspired you to help people be their most epic selves?
First of all, very grateful to be here. I think life and previous lives or future lives, whatever that is, the main thing is to find your purpose, find your destiny. And once that happens, I think all this stuff takes care of itself. And all I do is spend time with my family and connect visionaries to serve humanity, and really don't know how to do anything else. And I never think about it anymore. But I think that's the key to life, is just figuring out who you are, who you're not, how you're supposed to be, not what you're supposed to do, but how you're supposed to be, and then embracing that and full crusade all in doing that.
How do we do that, Justin? I know you and I have talked about this personally in our calls, though it's the question that's weighing on everybody's hearts, not just our minds. We get out of bed, and in today's digitally transformed world where AI is transforming our ability to outsource the things that don't bring us joy, the things that might not be our purpose. How do we use our discernment to be able to delve into what is mine to do?
It's a fair question. I strongly feel you're either born like this or you're not. And was running to I run every day outside, almost every day, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes 6, but was running today and just was looking at people, whatever they were doing, and I used to not understand it. But now it's just they're trying to live the best way that they can, and it's just understanding that you have to be at a place where you're able to have that awareness or consciousness where you're able to realize what life actually is. And I think a deal of the world isn't ready for that, or even understanding that they could be aware of it. And there's nothing right or wrong with that. It's just how it is. I guess the way I see the world, and I think you as well, and then people like us, is I appreciate that great intro, is very kind. I'm just a simplifier, so I'm like a soul simplifier. I can see where, for people like us, where their core is, they're just pure core, and then can connect them to other people like that will help them amplify it. And to me, you're like a soul amplifier,
Hmm.
also a soul recognizer and connector, but I think you're more of a soul amplifier. I just like to connect the right people to the right people. I don't even think about what happens as long as it helps people, but I don't care. It's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just supposed to recognize the soul simplification and provide the connection that can help them. And then just running today, I just saw you can just see it when someone's not ready for that. They're not it would be too overwhelming for them. They can't handle it.
What do you think? You said we're either born with it or we're not. What do you think our capacity is to evolve, to have it, whatever that je ne sais quoi, that visionary, that essence? I would argue in a loving way with you about this that we all have this little flame, this little fire. And
100%.
some of us, through trial, tribulation, through stimulation in the outside world, whatever it might be, through a person who believes in us, have
Yep.
blown on this flame until it's grown into this fire,
Yes.
this
Mhm.
burning. And
Yes.
so, how can we even begin to identify we have that flame? I feel like we're all
Oh,
accelerating
sure.
at such a quick
Great.
pace right now.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's a beautiful way of explaining that. And then, I live very simple life. Might not sound like that, but it's surprisingly simple actually, because purpose and loved ones just combined. Um, and then all I do is talk to visionaries, just visionaries. So not business owners, not consultants, not, and it has nothing to do, visionary has nothing to do with how many employees you have or anything. That doesn't matter. So there are four things that separate visionaries from everyone else.
Mm.
The true visionary. There are only four, not the silver spoons. That's a different discussion. And I do think this answers your question or dovetails it. So there are only four things. One, bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy. Two, depression. Three, highest level of anxiety you can imagine. Four, trauma as a child or young adult. For non-visionaries, those four things are excuses.
Mhm.
Oh, I can't do this. Nope. Oh, I'll stay in that job. Oh, I'm not gonna ask for that raise. Oh, I'm not gonna start that company. For visionary, figure it out. Visionary will never make an excuse ever.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I love that, Justin. I remember years ago when I went to open my first company, which was an epic failure, by the way. So I highly
No
recommend
failure.
it.
No, I don't believe in
So
that
it
word.
was a wonderful opportunity for my growth. Fair enough.
Thank
Fair enough.
you.
It was a wonderful you do for me what I do for the clients I work with, which is I
I'm a
like
soul simplifier.
yes, so true. So I had my greatest opportunity for growth. So I was proud of myself. I'd been making a killing 6 figures a year, but it didn't even matter. To your point, it was just money. So fast forward and I leave, I go tell the CEO and the president of the company, guys, I'm going. And we left on great terms. And they said, oh, you're going to open a company. You love to travel. You're never going to be able to travel as CEO of your own company. We've been through it. We've been doing this 10, 15 years. You don't know what you're in
Yeah,
for. And I was like, watch me. So whenever somebody says you can't do something, at least in my case, it inspires me to do it, and I remember,
of
Justin,
course.
I made a decision at that point in my life and a deal with myself at the soul level that I would run companies for the rest of my life, and in doing so, I would go on 1 trip every month, somewhere tropical every year, and somewhere I'd never been every year, and since that day, I
Right.
averaged 24 trips a year.
Most people aren't gonna do that.
I love it though, but it's about seeing the world differently. I've been on a lot of calls with brilliant other visionaries like Christina Wise, who I think you had connected me to, who we
Yes.
had just had on the show. And
Yep.
she and I were just on a conversation the other day, and we were talking about sometimes you don't think of yourself as traditionally creative. You have these beautiful, amazing artists who might be
Yeah.
pianists or painters.
Mm,
Yet those of us who are entrepreneurs or out here in the space of visionaries, consciousness,
mm,
whatever it might be,
mm,
we're creating things in a different way. We're creating new
mm.
ideas from something that didn't exist before. How can we cultivate that capacity for creativity in all of us to reach our potential and to be our potential, to your point?
Oh, okay. 5 words. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying that not you personally. So here you go. 5 words. You prevent you from simplifying. No excuses.
Mhm.
You're the problem.
You're the problem, and I'm gonna offer this, you're also the solution. So if
Correct. If you realize you're the problem, that's the solution.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
when we go through our lives blaming other people, there's
So it's wonderful. Again, most people, one, are not going to think that. Two, if they're listening to something like this, they will get resentful about it, but they're their own limiters. I can recognize whether someone is a limiter or not. If they aren't a limiter, I will see that and then connect them to other non-limiters, because non-limiters do not want to hang out with limiters. They don't. They don't want that.
so let's say that somebody's listening to this. I wanna make this practical, Justin. I get it. You and I, we can have these very esoteric conversations, and we can geek out on this for hours. Let's say somebody's listening, though, and you just gave them this light bulb moment. It's like,
They'll understand. They won't need any explanation after this. They will already be like, "Oh." So awareness is very high on the scale of consciousness. Most people aren't aware of this because people like us are usually aliens within their own family, community, and verticals. The only people understand us are people like this. So I've been talking like this my whole life. I'm almost, as of this recording, I will be 47 years old. I just looked into my own future. So I spent 42, 43 years of my life talking like this, and people would just stare, but you don't stop. You just keep going. The
mm.
flame's still there, but you don't let society or people who don't understand you extinguish the flame. You just keep going. I will say this, if it's helpful. I just learned this by being like this and then talking to people like us and then simplifying it. So simplified own, I guess, own soul, I guess. Because if you're not a litmus test for people you serve, that's hypocrisy. But combining loved ones, like a loved one's arc with a purpose arc, and then they come to an inflection point or an apex, and then that's where the true union comes, and then the true abundance. It's that combination of purpose or destiny and loved ones, and then it's like this beautiful tower is created. And if someone asks me, "What do you do?" Like they don't, it, it, it just that's just a linear question. But like the two questions I think that people can ask to find what I think we're both talking about here is one, who do you love? And two, what is your purpose or what is your destiny?
And
So
and
what's your target audience? Not what does your business do? Nobody gives a bleep about that. At least visionaries don't. Who do you love and what is your destiny purpose?
another question I was introduced to years ago at a thought leader group I was at, it changed my life. It was a simple question, and it involved just asking the question and getting curious about it, and the question was, "What matters to you?" And
What
I'll
matters?
Yeah, what
Right.
matters to you? I remember this young kid asked me the question, you're just paired sharing with a partner, nothing extraordinary or super complex, and he asked me that question, I said, "Building schools," and this was in June, I believe it was, of 2017, and he said, "Why aren't you doing it?" And I said, "I got too caught up in the linear thinking of I went to go build a school in Cambodia in 2012, and I didn't trust that the money was gonna go to the guy that I was gonna give it to build the school, and
Mm,
so I gave up on trusting, like, how do you build relationships with ministries of education? I got too stuck in my
mm,
head around it. And he said, "I want you to share that right now in front of this group of 100 thought leaders." And I did.
mm.
And a woman stood up, Linda, and she said, "Jen, call Skylar at Build on Monday." And we were off to the races. And 5 months later, we built our first school. And so
Right.
by asking ourselves and one another what matters to us, I think
Mhm.
that can be a catalyst for helping us become the visionaries of our own lives.
Thank you for saying that. I like to know where words come from because people say words and they most of the time they have no idea what they mean. Like the word business comes from bicygnus, old English word which means anxiety. So if someone ever says that word, I'm like, just start laughing a little, like business coach or business book, anxiety book, anxiety. And then sale, the word sale comes from sale, Italian word sale, which means dull and dirty. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's not good. And then, okay, so matter comes from Latin materia, which means timber substance, and from mater, mater, which means mother, essence. I didn't know that. I just looked it up. So that's what actually matters. Shocking. Substance with motherly love. That's good.
So, what are some of the keys, Justin? You've written these best-selling books. You have the book Epic Life. You talk about 30 transformational tools and techniques from these thought leaders that you got a chance to speak with about it, what are some of the highlights of things that can help us live an epic life?
It's really interesting. Even if you had asked me that a couple weeks ago, the answer would have been different. But I think finding that true destiny and that apex, that inflection point of loved ones and purpose, that recently happened. I didn't understand it until it did, but it did. And everything is much clearer to me now. I've started expressing that in drawings, which it helps. I think for people, I guess it actually helps to draw because the way we talk, I know it's not understood by most people. I get it, but the drawings I think do translate. And to double down on that, my favorite quote used to be from Earl Nightingale: "Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal." But now it's from Ralph Waldo Emerson: "To be great is to be misunderstood."
Mm. Yeah, I think there was some great quote, I don't know who said it, about if you live your whole life and you never make an enemy, you haven't lived a life worth living. Something to that effect.
It's a fair I think that's a fair point, and frankly, I wish that wasn't the case. An enemy let's look up what enemy means. I actually don't know what that means, but
Yeah, I was curious. That and the word success, when you said the first quote, I was curious because I don't know the etymology of the word success either. I'd be curious to know that.
I will look we can just do that. Enemy is from Latin inimicus, from not friend.
Hmm.
So it's actually not bad. It's not like you kill someone, it's just they're not your friend. They're not a loved one who shares purpose. They're not. So that is absolutely logical then. Made and I didn't make anything. They're just not friends. They're not There's not shared consciousness or understanding of that. So that's logical. All right, good. So glad you brought that up. And let's look up success. Did this answer your question, by the way? Oh, okay. Success from the verb "Sakuderi," which I don't know how to translate it, which means come close after. Result, oh, this is interesting. Result, outcome, termination of an affair in
Hmm.
advance of coming. Next to go move. So it's like a transformation. It's like I hate not an achievement. It's a movement to growth.
I'd like to pivot for a moment here because there was a
Hmm.
debate, for lack of a better word, that I was embroiled in earlier this week with a dear friend who's also neurodiverse and brilliant thought leader. I should connect you with.
Debate means to beat down, fight. I don't like that word.
Okay, so that's what could we call it instead? And
Conversation.
okay, a conversation. Let's say we were having a conversation. Have you heard of the book? There's the 48 Laws of Power. Do you know that book?
Yeah, Robert, is that Robert Greene?
I think so, yeah. So I might have come across it years ago, and this friend of mine was just really caught off guard. And she said, "Wow, Jen, I didn't realize that some people think this way." Like, I think there was one of the 48 laws was always have somebody who can be a scapegoat for you.
That's 48 laws of ego.
Yeah. So, question about that. What is power as a visionary, as an individual? How can we utilize power not from
Mhm.
an egoic place?
Right.
How can we use it from this?
Merging purpose and loved ones. Who do you love? What is your purpose? That's the ultimate power. That's the abundance apex.
So merging purpose and loved ones. And what about people? And I always like to play devil's advocate on this.
Loved ones are people. Those are your friends.
Say that again.
Loved ones are you already answered this in the series of questions, which is fascinating. The loved ones are your friends. You just merge your friends and purpose. That's all. Doesn't matter. And then triangle partnerships. My 9-year-old son, Chase, my 11-year-old son, Jake and Chase, they're 11 and 9. They've started drawing me. It's very interesting because they're like popular in school and they're great athletes and they're like people everyone relates to them, which is beautiful. And then they can draw things like me. But our 9-year-old Chase, he drew a geometry unlocks consciousness. So he drew a sun representing grandfather spirit, like in Native American, and then the Mother Earth, the source of life. He drew this. I'll send it to you if I haven't already. And then the neutral moon can do anything. And so the key to life is having these big key to life is having these triangle partnerships where there's at least one woman, if not two. Because biggest problem of the world is there's too many men with ego, with power. They're looking at power to shine their sun brighter, and then they don't have an actual Mother Earth or a moon. They're just making their suns look. That's literally what you just said. So true power is having this triangle partnerships again, where you find if it's a if it's more of a masculine energy, you find collaborative feminine energy, and then that neutrality, realizing your power and realizing it's collaborative, not for finding a scapegoat. So a scapegoat was paraded. If you look up scapegoat, because I looked that up when Steve Bartman, for those who know or follow baseball, he got in the way of a foul ball that everyone blamed him for the Cubs not getting to the World Series that year, and then they called him a scapegoat. So a scapegoat was literally paraded around olden times, around a village, to act so people could cast out their sins on the scapegoat. So that's the opposite of a triangle partnership. There's no scapegoat there. It's just a collaborative equality. And what's interesting, if it's triangle, it's 33.333, 33.333, 33 point. I would say I think the sun probably has the point 0.4 in there, just because usually it's the sun's sun idea where it originated from, but without that collective balance, then the sun just melts everything with their own ego, and then they just keep building their mask, with their ego in search for power. So
How do we
does that answer your question?
It does. And how do we cultivate compassion then, Justin? If there are people who maybe are all sun and no moon, no earth, no balance to it.
Oh, I just ignore them.
So I'm gonna I'm gonna continue on this course. We're at a state right now of humanity, Justin, where things are explosive, literally, figuratively.
Yes.
Things are, I think I just looked recently, there was a huge earthquake in New York, and we're seeing
Hmm.
it at the physical level of the earth.
Mhm.
We're seeing at the global level of our consciousness.
Yeah.
Could theoretically, to your point, just ignore it and just say, "Oh, I hope it goes."
Create your own thing. The formula for creating a successful global company is very simple. See a problem, create solution, problem solve, successful global companies. The problem, so you create solution, problem solved. And then you just the answer, then you just the purpose, the loved ones that you want to have with you on the journey, and then they'll attract their loved ones, their friends. You just combine it, and then you have the right balance of feminine and masculine neutral energy.
So what would be your solution for the crux we find ourselves in right now as humanity, where there is this imbalance of power, this imbalance
Oh,
of connection?
that's what the Brepic network is. I mean, that's why I was tired of being in rooms with all men, and so created a room where it's my wife's the COO, partner does 8 and 9-figure deals all day, and he's an empath. He's a pure moon, and my wife is pure Mother Earth. We have 35% of our members are women, which is interesting, 1/3. And then they're the ones creating more triangle partnerships. I just knew it had to get built because it's the biggest problem on the planet. And then you just never stop. You just keep going. And then when there are signs of friction or imbalance, then someone who recognizes that will realize that and then step up to do things that create the balance. And then for the people who are the sons, the SUNs, the visionaries, it's being aware that you prevent you from simplifying. They're the problem. So until they realize that, then they'll just keep being the problem. They're the mask. Just keep building their mask with finding scapegoats as opposed to they're the problem. That's interesting. They're finding That's the opposite of realizing they're the problem, finding a scapegoat. That's pretty funny.
So I guess the question for all of us is, where are there scapegoats? Where are we creating scapegoats in our own lives? Are we creating scapegoats, and what would it take?
Great question. Yeah.
What would it?
1, are you creating scapegoats? 2, why are you still doing that? Okay. See a problem, create solution. You're the problem, create the solution. Stop being the problem. Problem solved. It's easier than it seems, but most people make excuses. That's the whole point.
Yeah, the excuse-free life, what would that look like if we stopped trying to finagle our way around things, give scapegoats, and not be accountable for our actions? What would
Hmm.
it be like if we could be 1,100% accountable for
You
all
can
of our.
answer that.
I'm a human being, I make my share of errors, I do the very best I can to be 100,000% accountable every day, and yet sometimes I still have moments of error and judgment where I fall into
Great.
the same trap because 'cause we're human.
That makes you better. That's what it's like to live like this. You realize it just makes you better.
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, Justin, as people say, what happens if you do a lot of work and you reflect and you elevate your awareness and your consciousness? And does that mean you have no more problems? And the thing I tell people
Oh, what
over and over
are you
again,
talking about?
no, what it does mean though is that your ability to bounce back and to be resilient after
Yes.
you're triggered, after there's a breakdown, after something happens, is
Yes.
times faster. And then you don't sit in the muck for days, decades.
Yes.
You're able to
May I provide something that might be landing the plane, but I think it's relatable?
please.
Oh, okay. So one of my great friends, his name's Dr. Akintoye Akindele. He's in Nigeria and Atlanta. So there you go. Nigeria and Atlanta. He's lost millions, if not billions, made millions, if not billions. And I was talking to him about the four things bankruptcy potential. But so you actually have to go through all four. I don't necessarily agree with it. He made a good point. You have to go through all four to transform from pride to purpose. It's the only way to get full purpose is to like three and a half of those four. I'm not a full all four. Most people I talk to now are at least three. And then the other thing he said was it's like cracking, like a crustacean cracks its shell to grow a new one. I can't imagine it feels good to crack your entire exoskeleton to grow a new one, or like a hermit crab leaving a safe shell to go out in the open water, where hermit crabs could easily get eaten by anything, and to find a bigger shell. But a visionary will never stop doing it. And then to your point, cracking the first couple shells is much harder and I think takes longer. It's more difficult, and then your consciousness evolves and grows, and then it, even though the shell cracking is much bigger and much more painful immediately, you you grow into that new shell much quicker. So like things that, like you were saying, I'd ruminate on for like years, even, or even years now, and it feels very painful when the shell's cracking, but then you're like, even a couple minutes later, oh, okay, this is just my new shell. And what is very interesting to see how many times that even happens in a week now. That things that would take months, if not years to happen, now they happen in days, if not multiple times in the same day. And that takes some getting used to. That really, because it's confusing. You just don't expect, what, we're human, right? We're human. You don't expect your body or heart or whatever that is to change so quickly, but then it becomes logical. It just makes sense after a while.
I think one day I will write a book, Justin, called The Logic Puzzle Life. It's the only way I made sense out of life when I was depressed and anxious and felt like I wasn't gonna survive. You follow the breadcrumbs that lead us to our destiny, that lead us to our purpose,
Oh,
that lead
that's
us.
so good. So we were meant to talk today. My whole life used to be logic and understanding. And then I think that abundance apex, when the loved ones and purpose fully joins, it's fully illogical because it has nothing to do with logic. And then the only logical thing that makes sense is that it's illogical. So illogic is the true logic. That's the, it's like cracking your shell. It's the ultimate cracking of your shell. You just realize that now you've cracked your shell to this point where it's everything is intuition and feeling, and understanding that intuition and feeling should be trusted because it's been right the whole time. And then most people deny it. They block their own inner voice or intuition, and then they're miserable or not getting what they want out of life. But it's fully not doing that. That's the only logic, is not blocking that and then seeing all the amazing things that happen, and then making sure you have that balance, that triangle balance, to make sure you just don't float away or burn everything out. No, because I don't do anything backstage with the company at all. I'd blow up the company. I know that. I'd melt it completely. So I stay out of that completely. Gotta stay away. Yep.
Beautiful, Justin. Tell me, is there anything I haven't asked you today that you wish that you could leave everybody with? A last thought, a last thing to recap, a point you wanted to re-highlight for everyone?
You for asking that. My whole life, that's always the last question I ask. Very few people do that. The reason why that's such an important question is many times people don't, they want to say something, but they haven't been given the opening to do it. So it would be like, it just wouldn't flow in the conversation. So it's a great question to. And then as a journalist for 20 years, that question that you just asked, many times the answer would lead to the lead of the story with a first couple lines. So, with that context background, I will leave you with the simple answer to that question, answer question, or whatever that was. Better questions lead to better answers,
Mm.
lead to better people.
Thank you, Justin. We've had Justin Breen here today. Justin, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn about your network, your PR company, the work you're doing, find the books? What's the best place for them to connect with you?
Thank you again. Brepicnetwork.org is that's the best place to go. Brepicnetwork.org.
Beautiful. Thank you for your time, Justin. Thank you for your friendship. And thank you for paving the way for visionaries like myself, like others, to connect and to create greater coherence between ourselves, our loved ones, and our purpose. That really is the golden triangle. How can we do that and support one another in building a new world, a new paradigm where we all thrive and we all have the capacity to be who we're intended to be? I am Jennifer Cahill, and it is an honor to get to be here with you.